I've often had the question, why are you writing about the Holocaust and you're not Jewish? I'm just a writer looking for a story, and I found one. And this is how it came to me. You know how one event leads to another. Well, it first started in Paris when I was a student, discovering the world. My greatest discovery was Zorba, played by Anthony Quinn, in the movie Zorba the Greek. The book was by Nikos Kazantzakis. Zorba took over the city. The soundtrack was playing in the cafes, and we danced Zorba's dance in the clubs. I identified with Zorba's need to dance from his soul and as a catharsis. Also, to love and live passionately, to follow his heart with the courage to go full steam ahead into new adventures, even as he approached death. Zorba says, they say that age kills the fire inside of a man, that he sees death coming. He opens the door and says, come in. That is a pack of lies. I've enough fight in me to devour the world. So I fight. Another thing Zorba says that I like, life is trouble. Only death is not. To be alive, a man must undo his belt and look for trouble. It always found me, I didn't have to look. 10 years later, I was trying to explain myself to someone, and I used Zorba's voice and my words. And it was also a reaction to the poem Rudyard Kipling's If, which is a bit stoic without the softer side of a person. I never told you my name. Alexis Zorba. That's me, Zorba. I do many things, but first, I'm a lover. What do I love? People, cats, dogs, trees, sunsets, everything, but mostly women. I love children too. The fires burn hot, passions flow quickly. Life is taken at this moment, or like a wild ram, it charges by. You must grab it, both hands, turn it to the ground quickly. I give it all I got. It takes what it wants. I dance to weddings, parties, funerals, divorces. Anytime I must. Courage, madness, imagination, all the same thing. Who can be without them? If I let little things like job, car, house, pride get in the way, the important thing never happens. Be embarrassed at least once a week. Only then can you be free to be yourself. I don't run from my madness, I embrace it. It makes me free. I embrace all people as my family. If I can do these things, not only am I a man, but I am alive. Yehuda's son Alex Edelman heard me do the poem and decided I was the one to write his father's story from an unfinished memoir. Yehuda's story was lost in his report of atrocities of the last 2,000 years and was like a first draft with more summary than explanation. The death camps and suffering were not the focus of the book. I wrote about the determination to survive, fighting back, and getting revenge. I want to introduce you to the narrator of the story, Yehuda. For 300 years, my family lived in the village of Gorodok, which is mostly white Russian. It lay between the cities of Minsk, Belarus, and Vilnius, Lithuania. Between the wars, we were Polish, and life was harsh. Anti-Semitic feelings were fueled from the propaganda coming out of Germany. Enrollment at the universities was restricted. Jews were forbidden to have land. 50 young people waited to get certified by the British to go to Palestine. Few got certified. Everyone wanted to leave, but few countries wanted us. We had 25 shopkeepers, 50 families of peddlers who traveled 6 days a week with a horse and wagon, selling to farms in nearby villages, selling soap, cloth, raw herring, kerosene, flour, wheat, and chickens for the Sabbath. Each week, the peddlers traveled by train to Vilnius, with its factories, wholesale markets, and 80,000 Jews. We became victims of Nazi propaganda and prey to a culture that envied our success in art, commerce, and medicine. They could forget that 96% of European Jews were impoverished third-class citizens with few rights and no land. We were shopkeepers, smiths, tailors, carpenters, and peddlers because other opportunities were not available. I graduated college in Vilnius, certified to teach math and 5 languages. After 2 years in the Polish army, I got a job teaching in a grammar school where I became principal. That is a job I had when the Nazis came and made me a carpenter, building barracks to house the occupation troops and the killing squads. I invite you to step into the heat of the Holocaust as I outrun death, while everything I love is dying around me. They killed my culture, my family, friends, and even God. I could no longer believe in a God that let the Holocaust happen. Anger and hunger for revenge kept me alert and looking for an opportunity to escape the Nazi net and fight back. Even as one was able to escape the work camp, he was subject to the kindness of strangers. And he was able to make his way to the resistance. He had to have a weapon to be accepted, and then he might be killed fighting. So it was all pretty precarious. Grishka, I'm reading something from the book, Grishka has just escaped and looking for help. He's waiting in the woods for the concealment or darkness to approach the back door of his friend's house. Grishka's eyes close and fill with tears as he sees his 2 small boys being thrown down the synagogue well, and his mother being bludgeoned by the butt of a rifle. All the tragedy and hardship of his sparse 28 years as a peddler and a peddler's son cannot add up to the trauma suffered in today's election. The pain of a lifetime was concentrated in a few moments. He has hope that his wife is alive since he saw her go into the truck with the young women. And that truck did not turn off into the woods. She's too beautiful to die, he mourns. Damn if she weren't so pretty. Some Nazi bully, a fat Ukrainian god, is going to demand sex. What should she do? Resist or try to save herself with sexual favors? The bastards, I hate them. I don't want to think about it. He watches the cottage for an hour, sees no one come or go. Finally, it's dark enough, so he moves through the shadows, avoiding the light of the half moon. He approaches the rear window and wipes off the dust and looks through the distorted glass to see white-bearded, wrinkled Dmitri alone, eating a plate of stew and drinking his vodka. God, I'm hungry, Grishka mumbles as he visualizes the food and remembers the last time he ate at this table. With 2 steps, he moves to the back door and gives 3 rats. Already he tastes the food on the table. The noise arouses the German shepherds sleeping in the front yard, and they're soon at the back door, showing their teeth. Hush, hush, Toby Tanya, commands Grishka. The dogs stop barking, let down their ears, sniff, wag their tails, and push their heads in position for effect. Grishka squats to look their level and hugs them with his hands, pulling them into his thighs as the back door creaks open a crack. And a squinting Dmitri says, "Who is it?" He moves toward the door and whispers, "It's Grishka, my dear Dmitri." Dmitri nervously opens the door and says, "Come quickly. No one must see you." Grishka slips through the door and sits down at the table, spreading 2 long fingers. He steals a potato out of the stew pot, throws it into his mouth. He grabs the bottle of homemade vodka, chokes down a mouthful, pours some on his gunshot wound above his ear. The vodka stings his scalp, eases the tension in his neck, and sends the room spinning about him. The spider web of wrinkles in the old man's face blends into a frown as he lights a short, fat candle over the fireplace and turns out the oil lamp on the table, leaving Grishka in the dark. "Finish the stew," Dmitri offers as he hands him a clean fork and sits down and watches him eat. Grishka gobbles up the leftovers in 3 bites, pushes back from the table, still hungry, and looks to Dmitri for more. Dmitri ignores his silent, dog-eyed request and looks into the fireplace as he speaks. "Always, I look for the safe way. I go around mountains. I don't try to climb over them. I don't take chances. I like to sleep at night. Do you understand? At my age, I don't need your kind of aggravation. I'm an old tree that bends with the wind, and by doing so, have survived." He pauses, clears his throat, spits in the fireplace, and turns to Grishka and continues. "Your mother and the boys are dead. I heard your wife is alive in Krasno, but she will die. You too will die. All Jews will be killed. Your fate is sealed. May God help you. I can do nothing for you. I can't keep you in my house. You put my life at risk. Yesterday, my neighbor was shot for keeping a Jew. You have any regard for me? I don't think so. Or you would not come here. Go off and die, you son of a bitch, by yourself. Join your wife. But don't take me with you. Accept it. You are a dead man." The anger in Grishka's eyes is quenched by tears of rejection. Desperate and pleading, he says, "Dmitri, my friend, my family has loved you for years. We've often exchanged gifts and sat down together, shared the best we had. Look, I have a ring, the gold ring of my father's. It's worth 200 marks or more. I would trade it to you for your handgun. Give it to me. And as soon as I find another, I will give it back. Please, my life depends on it." Dmitri looks at him with contempt that builds into a rage as he leans into Grishka's face and spits on the floor. "And my life depends on you leaving here now. If they find my gun on you, they will shoot me with it. Go, get out of my house. I don't want to see you again, ever. If you come back, I will shoot you and feed you to my dogs." Without a word, Grishka, with tears in his eyes, gets up, doesn't look back. In 3 quick steps, He's out the back door and gone. He's angry, still hungry. Vodka has given him the courage to disregard his fear of the neighbors who might turn him in for the bounty money. As he passes through the backyard, he impulsively grabs a roosting chicken out of Dimitri's coop, carries it squawking by the legs as he leaves the yard. He now has left absolutely everything of the old life behind, and humiliation of being a chicken thief is sinking in. He's feeling rejection, the loss of his family, realizing he's a fugitive with no friends. Okay, are there any questions? That's why you bought the book.
Well, you said this is a real story.
Real story.
You were given this story.
I was what?
Given this story.
Yeah.
Tell us about him. Tell us about it.
Well, like I said, Yehuda heard me do that poem and several more.
Where?
And we were at the beach at a New Year's Eve party. And he was wanting somebody to tell his father's story. And anyway, I agreed to do it. And then a few months later, I had a lot of it done. We sat down and looked at it. And I got distracted over it. I got to a point that I didn't know what to do. I went through his period where he was a guerrilla fighter. And had all these well-developed characters. And then he joined the Russian army, and I had to give all those characters up and start a whole new book. And I was resisting it and trying to figure out a way around it. And so he read the book, read my manuscript back in November, and he says, "Writers, polish, polish, polish. We need to publish this thing. Quit polishing." and then the book comes out a couple of weeks ago. And he says, "Have you thought about tweaking it?"
But were these from his memoirs, his father's?
His father tried to write down his story before he died. And his father died in 1983, and he was 70 years old. Yeah, and he published his memoir, self-published his. I think his son self-published his memoir the year he died. But it was all confusing. It was like a first draft, somebody just writing down whatever came to mind with no organization, and a lot of summary and not much detail. What I did was I took the plot of the story and turned it into a novel. And I took the characters he mentioned and had them talking to each other. But the book is true to Yehuda's story.
Did you have to do a lot of research?
I had to do a lot of research because they were old. And I was boxed in one time, in one hand with the memoir, in the other hand with history. And that was a bit difficult. You're not in a lot of freedom to move around. You have to stay with blinders on.
So this is being published as a non-fiction book?
They call it creative nonfiction.
Oh, that's history. So
That's history. It's historical. Well, you can call it historical novel.
Historical novel.
yeah.
I think that's a category.
So where is Yehuda these days?
What?
Where does Yehuda, the son, live?
He lives in Houston, and he didn't leave Russia until he was about 12 or 13. And so he speaks Russian pretty well, and he sells all drilling equipment to the Russians.
But you met him in Paris?
I
You were
met
doing
him
the reading
at the beach, at my mother's beach house. We had a New Year's Eve party every year, and a friend brought him. And that's the first time I saw it. And he immediately brought up the fact that he wanted somebody to write a story and wanted me to do it.
How long ago was that?
That was when we first got back from Hawaii. That was, Henry was 3 years old. So it was about 18 years ago. And I went through a long period of playing golf and doing other things.
Never give up.
And it was actually Martha Weinstein. I was talking to her about the book. Our dogs were playmates. And so I gave her a chapter, and she read it, wanted to hear more, and she inspired me to go on with it. So I have to thank Martha for, Marcia.
She's right here.
Just sort of share with us.
Say again the question.
What?
Will you share with us your personal journey, emotionally, in unfolding this story? So poignantly describing a very horrible time. And I know that you put it off, and I know that you tweaked and all of this, but now that it's actually in this form, how do you feel about it?
It's like relief from constipation. No, it's been stopping up my writing for a long time.
Can you expand on that?
I went through a lot of emotion writing it, and of course I had to relive and become these characters, and when that happens you have to put yourself in their shoes and become them. And so I was Yehuda for a long time, and more Yehuda than Yehuda. Yeah.
So it was New Year's Eve and it just seemed like a good idea at the time?
Well, he was around for about a week, and he brought up the fact that he was looking for somebody to write his father's story because it wasn't finished. It was just like a first draft, and he wanted his father's story being heard. And so I talked to his mother some, and Alex, and what he remembered. But often I had to make a chapter out of a couple of pages because it was just summary and not detailed. So I had the scene was there, but it wasn't explained.
Did he keep the diary during the war?
I don't know about that. He probably did, but I don't know if he did. But I put it in a diary form, just for my own organization, and I just kept it that way. And that was the first title, Yehuda's Diary. And I took it to the Miami Book Fair, and the publisher liked it. Said he wanted to publish it, but he didn't like the title, so I had to change the title. But when he took it back to his committee, it didn't pass. So I ended up doing it with Creative Space. But I really like having that control rather than left up to whatever.
So when did the father write this?
When did he write it?
Yeah.
He was writing it his last days.
In English also?
Huh?
Did he write in English?
Yes, yes, he did. He knew English from college. He learned English in college. He was certified to teach 5 languages. In English and German, Polish, Hebrew, I don't know what else. But he was an excellent English speaker before he even got here. So he knew English.
And he wrote it probably in the 70s or so?
Well, 70s, and he died in 83. But it was just like, it was probably baking in his head a long time. But I think an early, well, 70 years an early death.
Agreed.
Anyway, he just died before He just died before it was finished.
So when you add his total time and your total time on the book, this is
It's
going on for half a century probably.
Right. Well, I can't say I was constantly at it. I just got to a stopping point. Hi.
It's
Hi, I
a
came late, so
percolation.
I'm sorry I missed the beginning of it. But as a child of Holocaust survivors, my father was liberated from Auschwitz and my mother from the ghettos. I want to thank you personally for keeping the story alive and so that we should never forget, because that's a generation that's dying out. And their words and their memories are dying. So thank you for keeping it alive.
Thank you. This story was lost until I wrote this book. Hopefully it'll come back to life. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, enjoy yourself.